Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Working in Hockey podcast. I'm your host, Nick Bowens, and today, pleased to be joined by Anthony MORRA, CEO of Bladetech Hockey. Super excited to hear about the journey. It's an innovative product. They've got some great marketing. They've got some great people working on the team. Anthony, thanks for taking time here today. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Nick. Pleasure. Love what you're doing with this video and podcast. Just happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the time, and I'm excited to get into your journey and the journey of Bladetech Hockey. We'll start super easy. Take me all the way back. Early days of Bladetech Hockey. How'd the idea come about? Getting down to business, getting things started. Obviously, an innovative product in a sport that doesn't always have innovation or appetite for change. Talk to me a little bit about the early days of Bladetech.
Yeah, I think what you see in hockey a lot in terms of the equipment and on the equipment side is feigned innovation. A new thing out every year and happens to be released in July. It's like everyone's trying to just kind of redo the same old thing. So that was happening with skates, basically. Skates did improve over the last, let's say, 20 years. But all the improvement has really been in the boot. It's the better carbon fiber, lighter materials that makes it more comfortable and better for performance and better for protecting your foot from being broken. I mean, that's the kind of
Yeah.
the main purpose of the skate. So it actually had beginnings where you went to school, University of Waterloo. This is where Blade Tech hockey was born. So my partner Jeff Azalin, this was a fourth year capstone engineering project for him. Go to the world, look at something, make it better. Like that's how as broad as the instructions were for this project. So as a hockey player, you looked at the skate wall and he's like, I got to buy my own equipment. If I'm spending $100 or $500 or $1,000 on skates, what am I actually getting for that increased amount of money spent. And long story short, we looked at it and said, the boot was better, but the holder and the blade, the bottom half of the skate was exactly the same on the $100 skate and the $1,000 skate. So what can we look at in that relationship? Is there anything we can do with the relationship between, the skate, the holder, and the steel that we can actually have improved performance? This was long story short, 2 years of R&D and looking at the mechanics of skating, looking at, how efficient energy is used in other sports like speed skating, like golf, where there's like a compression and release. Tennis obviously has this kind of there's compression and releases and these types of technologies in all sorts of sports. So Jeff invented something that worked well for the hockey skate, where it's motion in the front part of the skate. When it pushes down, you know, it'll cushion some of that energy, that vertical force, and then hold it and then transfer it horizontally, which actually helps you move forward or backwards, whichever way you're skating. And proved in multiple scientific tests that it actually added about 5.5% increase in speed. So it was a real innovation driven by the question of how do we actually make players faster? Not, I need to release a new skate next year. How can I make it look like it's new?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not the driving factor. The driving factor was actual performance. So that's what happened, and we released this into the market in 2015, and have been growing the brand and based on that product ever since.
That's awesome. No, I think it's such a cool idea, and hearing you say that the boot and the holder, different kind of innovation trends or patterns there as well, right? So, and growing up, I never thought much about my skate blades. I know
Mm,
profiling was kind of coming around when I was probably grade 9, grade 10. People were starting to try different profiles and stuff, and I didn't jump on it early, but I had a equipment manager once say like, "Well, would you put summer tires on a snowplow?" Like
yeah,
was kind of the metaphor that he used for getting the right profile and getting the right blade. And you touch on the little bit over 5% increase there with how much people are searching for an edge in today's game. That's substantial. Talk to me about kind of the R&D again a little bit more there of going into that, and how much you were able to tick up. Was it 2% initially? You try a couple things, then you get to that 5%. I think that
yeah,
journey would be super fascinating.
yeah. So if we want to get into the nitty gritty of it, to just going over the research, I didn't directly do the research. This was done, prior to me
Yeah.
finding Jeff. But the original Blade Tech. So what's really important is Blade Tech is actually our point is the motion.
Yeah.
So it's motion in the front part of the skate and of the blade. And that can be achieved, like our patent has, 15, 20 different drawings of how that can be achieved. So the original blade tech was
Mhm.
actually a spring in a holder.
Holder
So
technique.
so
Oh,
he so he actually took regular pieces. So our blades, flexible blades weren't a thing yet.
yeah.
So he took a die spring and he removed the holder. He put the die spring in there, so it's just like a metal spring, fastened to the front. To do that, before he did that, he had to look at all the mechanics of skating. So
Right.
speed skating and the clap skate was the most innovative thing on ice in terms of skating in the last 50 years. The first competition, I think it was a world championship before the Olympics in like 2002 or something like that, or 98, one of those Olympics. But the world championship just before that is when the clap skate was first time allowed in competition. Every single world record is broken
Wow.
and broken by a significant amount. You're talking, they were like, half seconds and full seconds, which is massive in any sort of speed racing, skating, running, anything like that, right? So obviously, like, it wasn't all of a sudden everyone was stronger or faster. It was like, okay, this technology is working for them. So we knew there was opportunity there. We knew there was opportunity to look at mechanics of hockey skating and see where can we benefit from some sort of movement or some sort of efficient energy transformation. And hockey's unique because it's not speed skating. You're not just skating in a straight line with like
Right.
some big ass crossovers.
Yeah.
It's you're changing directions almost constantly. You're almost never going in a straight line,
Yes.
right? So it's like, well, what parts can we enhance in that? So it was from uh the vertical when you have the most vertical force, because you realize when you have the most vertical force, so when are you pushing down on the ice most? So it's from out of a stop
Yep.
when you're literally changing direction, all your force is almost vertical, your first couple of strides, or out of a tight turn again, you're slowing down, you're changing direction. So those two things, stops and tight turns, we have the most vertical force. Can we cushion that? So cushioning that actually is easier on your muscles, your joints, your knees, and so it actually reduces some of the fatigue and impact injuries that can
Mm.
happen. So that was actually an auxiliary benefit. It was an extra benefit.
Yeah.
It wasn't the purpose of it, but doing this allowed for that benefit. So that's what happens first is it cushions on, but then it takes that energy and it stores it. Usually that energy is absorbed in your knees and it's wasted,
Right.
and it's just wearing your knees out basically.
Yeah.
So we absorb that, and then as you're extending your strides and releasing it, it is starting to release it on this horizontal plane. So the simplest thing is blade tech takes vertical force, transfers it horizontally. That's what it does. So we achieved that. Again, he achieved it with a spring in the holder with a regular blade. We've reiterated that now to what you see today, which is just the blade itself, which flexes. So the purpose and the way the function of it is the same, just how we do it is different.
Right.
With it's just the blade flexing into the holder. It's taking again that vertical force and transferring it horizontally, and it just makes every single one of your strides more efficient.
That's super interesting. I think I could listen to that for hours and dive in very deep and technical with that. That it's so cool, and I think such a interesting innovation that again a lot of people probably had never given any thought to or
Mm.
thought that the skates could change any further other than like you said a little bit more padding, a little bit tighter up here, whatever it is on the boot. Talk to me about the business side a little bit though. You mentioned again come back to just over 5% increase there when you're trying to get players educated about the product and get them using it, whether it's pro players, minor players, whatever it is it as simple as, hey, this can be 5% faster for you? Or is there a lot of education, a lot of trial? Was there any back and forth with guys in the early days about making, adjustments or tweaks to fit their skating styles or anything like that? How's the adoption been with players?
Great question. So number one is you can tell everyone everything I just said. You can tell that to a player and stuff, and halfway through their eyes are going to glaze over and you're going to lose them. So it's like okay, 5% increase in speed. That's like cool. So what? Like, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, it's if you're skating between from the red line from the end line to the blue line, that zone, you're going to gain half a stride. I'm like, okay, still like I don't get it, but anyway. So for us, with a lot of high end players, it's hey, this works in a certain way, it's gonna feel better. Like that's as short as our conversation is. It's like just try
Yeah.
it. And so the adoption has been good because people are like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Like I have nothing to lose really. And if it gives me extra speed, great. If it doesn't, like, well, as long as it doesn't, as long as people don't complain, it's usually okay. But where pros especially feel the difference is, hey, they do it, they adopt it, they're starting to use it and practicing game on a daily basis. If they don't have other pairs, because you know how pros like they swap their blades sometimes in the
Right.
middle of a period, if they don't have it and they something happens, they lose an edge or something, they go back to their other steel, their slump
Right.
steel. They'll go on shift and they'll come back. And we had actually had a player in the island, New York Islanders, years ago. Went out, they only had two pairs. Something happened with both. It was just a random one of those games where you lose a couple edges. So the backup pair was the stock steel. He goes out for a shift, comes back, and he goes, "Oh my God!" He goes, "You got to fix those other blades, my Bladetech blades." He goes, "Because I felt so heavy."
Yeah.
And what he meant by that was the blade wasn't doing any work for you. The stock steel doesn't do any work for you anymore.
Yeah.
So imagine, all of a sudden you're playing and you break your stick and you got to go to like a wood stick or even like a two piece with a wood
Yeah.
blade. It would just feel so different and feel so heavy. Not because that's bad, but just because, the sticks now do so much work for you.
Yeah.
And this was the first time blades were actually doing work for you. So that's the big thing with the adoption and at the pro level or high level, AAA, um, major junior players, that kind of stuff is like just try it, get used to it, and once you're
Mhm.
used to it, you won't realize it until you ever have to go back and you realize and use non-flexible blades. That's where the biggest difference is actually felt. So it's a really cool thing, and then we get to get players excited and things like that. We do custom stuff, so custom engraving, names, numbers, logos.
Yeah.
We got amazing coating materials, so black coating, gold coating, and color coding, which we're the only ones who do it in the way we do it, where we can actually customize it with players' uniforms if they're doing special, third uniform stuff, military stuff. Like we do some really cool stuff for the pros.
No, that's awesome to hear. And again, it's something I could talk about forever on kind of just the adaptation and
Yeah,
adoption of the product there with players. And yeah, it's like trying to go back to power steering today. Most people
yeah.
wouldn't be able to do it, right? But away from the highest level players, away from the guys that are looking for that extra percentage, your minor hockey players, your beer league guys. What's the pitch, the education to them? Is it again kind of on the performance based element there? Is it more that's where you guys have leaned into the customization features and to get interest there? Or how would you get, your average 11-year-old playing sea level hockey in Northern Ontario to buy a pair of blade techs?
Great question on all of those. It depends who we're talking about and what the features are. So, given the research and stuff, I'll start quickly with Beer League because they're a really unique segment and
Yep.
much ignored, by the way. Nothing's designed for them.
Yep.
No one
Yep.
designs any new products for Beer League players, I promise
They're
you.
the only adults getting hand me downs.
Yes. But these are people that have played their whole life. This is what they spend their week doing. Some guys still playing 3 times a week.
Yep.
This is what they spend their disposable income on. So they want the newest and the best, and they're always interested in looking at that. And what I thought was when we looked at the research, and yeah, there's an increase in speed. I'm like, oh, these guys can save their knees because I know obviously you've been playing hockey your whole life. You've got knee issues, back issues, you name it. Right? Some guys have had surgeries, all this stuff. So I was like, okay, I was trying to sell them on the oh, you're gonna feel better and stuff like that, but not interested.
Yep.
It's surprising. Like beer leaguers are still interested in performance. They're actually more interested in performance than anyone else because they're trying to get as much performance out of their body as I'm 40 years old and 65 years old. We have 80-year-olds buying our steel. It's unbelievable. I'm still skating. Like, don't break a hip, dude. But hockey people will play till they die, seriously. And it's such a breadth of people. You got people like me in their 30s and literally people in their 80s and everyone between. So there's just a whole breadth of people that have played hockey and had grown up playing with so much different equipment. We actually, guys love us because they have old skates. They didn't realize they can change their steel. Just because you have skates that are not quick release holders does not mean you can't change your steel. Look into it. So a lot of education there, profiling, guys trying profiles for the first time in their 50s. So we have a lot of fun with those guys, and they're just they're so receptive because they're so hungry for the new technology and, hey, I haven't bought new skates in 20 years. Like, what are my options? And they're also overwhelmed with the equipment today, the amount of sticks, the amount of you name it, right? So that's fun with them. On the youth side, where we really kind of hit a home run is elite players from, I would say, 9 to 10 years old to about 14, 15. Um, these people are, and with their parents, obviously, on the ice, 5 to 8 times a week, uh, doing all sorts of stuff, multiple teams, travel teams, you name it, coaches, private coaches, skills coaches, training coaches. It's wild. At that age, we benefit like everyone thinks you're going to the show, which is, and everyone's looking for the edge, right? Everyone's looking for to give their kid the most benefit or the best opportunity to do the best they can in the sport. So we spend a lot of time educating that on profile. So introduction profiling and how that works. We are the only ones that have built an efficient like 30 seconds to a minute profile assessment tool on our website. No one else has that. Everyone else tries to complicate you with all these different names and measurements and blah, 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 blah. We've distilled it and simplified it as something really simple. So a huge part of what, like other than technology in our blade, and we know that works extremely well, education on everything else that goes around skating. So profiles, sharpens, hollows, that stuff, trying to get people to go to more shallow hollows so they have better glide and maintain their top speed. All of that coincides with better performance. So we have spent, so Blade Tech has really evolved into kind of Blade Tech hockey performance, where I would say about 80% of blade orders, probably a little more. I have to really dive into it. But 80% of blades that are ordered online have a service embedded to them. So
Mm,
profiling or sharpening or both,
mm,
or engraving. I don't know, actually it doesn't even include engraving because engraving is just kind of an aesthetic, nice looking thing. Um, but that it means like somebody either wants it done or they've researched it, they've done their profile assessment and they've got it down. So, and we spend a lot of time like on phone calls and emails back and forth, being like, what's best for my kid, blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
So, so we've really become actually the profile assessment tool is fun stat. I have over 45,000 submissions to the profile
Wow.
assessment. So we have I would argue the most data on profiles and players than anybody.
Yeah, that's impressive. But I think again, to your point, that speaks to how many people are interested in this type of thing,
Hmm.
even though it's not the sexy new stick that has all the commercials of you want to
Yeah,
shoot like Austin Matthews, this is the new technology, whatever. It's a different product than that, but that's how many people are still interested in it, and
yeah,
understand once they try it, they understand the benefits and the different feel, and again, the profiling side of things. As somebody who didn't grow up with that and it kind of came in after, like trying to wrap my head around that the first couple of years it was a thing. I'm like, what the hell is a quad zero? What is this? What am I doing? Like, why do I feel like I've never skated before? All those different things. Open-ended question on the profiling side of things. What are some of the main benefits on profiling your skates? What are some of the most common profiles that you guys see or recommend to people today?
yeah. Good question on both. Um, Look, we're not endorsed by any companies or things like that, so we do things based on what we've seen and also kind of some of the machinery that we have and things like that. So
For sure.
So number one, in general, the biggest question is like, what's a profile? Like I've heard about it, like, but what is it? So essentially, you're changing the shape of the bottom of the blade. So essentially, the blade is kind of banana shaped. There's a curvature and there's a flat part in the middle and curved at the back a little more. So this is for player skates, by the way. Goalies are like completely flat, different. Goalies a whole other topic
Those are
we're not
weird.
gonna get into. They're weird dudes. We love them, but they're weird.
We need
So
them.
profiling for skaters, it's basically changing the shape, the bottom of the blade, the shape of it. So either making it more curved or more flat. Those are the only two things you can do. So essentially what most profiles do, let's say, 90% of them, they're going to put you more on your toes. So let's say that the center of your blade, that your center of gravity, if you're standing on the ice and you're standing straight up, your weight is going to be like right in the middle of the blade. Okay, so What a profile does will put it a little more forward of center, which allows you to be in that knee bend ready position. In fact, if you do that with a good profile on there, you'll just keep moving forward instantly
Yeah.
without moving your feet. So it puts you in that more lean forward ready position automatically, a little easier. And from there, you can do everything else a little easier. So you still have to, do your edge work. You still have to do your root skating and use, use the blades as best as possible and your edges as best as possible. But profiling really does help kind of enhance that. Just the way our flex force advantage helps enhance your stride. This will kind of enhance your starting position and your um where your weight is. And then you gotta learn how to have the benefit or use that as to your benefit. But in general, it does help you kind of put you in that ready position more. And then some of the most common ones are definitely the quad and superiors from Point Sharp. Um, these are ones we've been working with and ones we mostly suggest. There's different one like ellipses, which make the middle more flat, and some pros have gone into that. But most young players and most guys are doing the superior quad, which basically they both work in the same way. They make the front more curved and the back flatter. So you want the front of your blade more curved because it increases your agility. You're changing directions, your first few quick steps, it's all with the balls of your feet. Again, where the flex force of Bladetech engages. But you don't want too much blade there, so you want it curved more so you can kind of have quicker strides. Then once you hit your top speed, your weight on the blade goes towards the middle, and if you're turning, it goes towards the back. So you actually want more blade on the ice. So if you're hitting your top speed, you want more blade on the ice, so you're gliding. You're not digging into ice. Think of a speed skater, how long their blades are. It's because they're basically floating on the ice. You're not digging into the ice at all,
Right.
unless they're doing a little turn. So when you hit your top speed or your tight turns, you actually want more blade on the ice, so you get more stability and more glide.
Okay.
So that's in general most profiles work like that.
Yeah, again, it's all super interesting, and I think the education on it's increased over the past couple of years. But there's still a lot of people who are curious and interested, and I think that is backed up by 45,000 people filling out the assessment on you guys' site
Yeah.
there. Shifting back to the business of Blade Tech a little bit more. Been in business for about 10 years now. How many people are on the team currently? What's sort of the setup logistically where you guys are, warehouse wise, people coming in to buy things? What's sort of the long term or next steps for the business overall?
Great questions. Our business has grown really, I guess, slowly but organically over the years, and it's really that classic exponential curve type of thing. It
Mhm.
was like, okay, building the foundation. We got 5 people on blades, we got 10 people on blades, we got 100 people on blades. Um, in the last 10 years, most of our growth has happened in the last four,
Okay.
right through the pandemic, actually, which is kind of counterintuitive, but what differentiated us from most other hockey companies, period, was we were a full-fledged e-commerce site.
Right.
All of our business was online. We were operating out of, a spare bedroom in my partner's house.
Yeah.
This is where Blade Tech was fully operational. And then when that was too small, we got the other spare bedroom, and that was too small too. We moved into the basement, and we've been in the basement of his house until about 8 months ago.
Well,
So this whole thing was built out of there. Now we had machinery, we had stuff, we had employees. So we're not 8 people. Full-time media, full-time customer service, and full-time fulfillment services and fulfillment. And then myself and my partner Jeff doing just a little bit of everything on top of that, and kind of seeing what we do next with new products and new partnerships and that type of stuff. So we're a very lean team for the amount that we do, but we're also everywhere. We do all the shows, we do all sorts of tournaments, we build partnerships, you name it, and we've got new products coming down the pipe as well. And that's where kind of we got into sticks, and we can touch on that too because we're doing sticks in a very specific way. But and we're all based in Toronto, in Mississauga, technically. So we do have a public facing shop for the first time. Moved in there in July really opened the doors in August of 2024. So if you guys are in the Toronto GTA area, definitely throw us in your Google Maps. You'll find us and come check us out between 9 to 5 on Monday to Friday.
Awesome, awesome. No, that's great. And I again having about 8 employees there and being involved in the hockey space for quite a while now. Usually ask some career advice for people listening to this looking to break into the industry, but to flip it a little bit as an entrepreneur and a business owner, there, what do you look for when you are hiring people? What catches your eye in a candidate, in a resume? You've got 8 stars working there for you with the amount that you guys are doing. What do you look for in a good employee?
That's a good question. For us, it is somebody who's, it's going to sound very cliche.
It always is.
Yeah, it's somebody who's a good team player, and that means I have very specific definitions of what that is. But that's basically somebody's going to come in. There will be a job description, there will be a role and certain things you're responsible for, but essentially you are there to work for Team Bladetech, which means if anything's asked of you, like you just like, yeah, I'm in, I'll do it, whatever. We're not doing anything crazy or dangerous or illegal. It's like, hey, our media guy will be working editing a film, and then a box of or a truck of 20 stick boxes will come. We all go and unload it,
Yeah.
right? That type of thing where it's like it's not like, oh, that's not in my job description. Yeah, I didn't have unloading truck in your job description, but you're here for part of the team, so you're gonna do, if you have to hop in and package sticks, like our media person who was a mutual friend of ours, he's done everything. He's literally unloaded boxes, he's literally packaged packages. I think he's even sharpened skates before, engraved states, like steel, like everything. Because it was, hey, we got to get, we had people waiting months for our white sticks, for example, because we couldn't keep them in stock. They were such a popular item. When we got, we unloaded the 20 boxes, we unpacked them, and the sticks went out that day. Like, so that the entire team did. So those types of things, if you're going to join a small business like ours, you've got to be ready for anything and be a team player, a true team player. And that's doing it without complaining or like, why am I doing this? Or, and guess what? You still got to do your other work because no one's editing that video anymore. You still got to do that. So really understanding the environment and that you're going to be asked to do anything and everything, but then you get all the perks of, you really see an impact when you work when you're a team of 6 or 8 people. Your work is directly related to the results of, if you're doing social media, you're going to see all those results instantly. If you're packaging packages, well, it's like, hey, we sent out 80 packages today, like let's send out 85 tomorrow and try to break that record. And you kind of get to see, you get great feedback from people.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. Any skills, anything you have to learn and stuff can be taught. So that would be the other piece, is the appetite to learn, be curious, ask a lot of questions. There's no, I've never had an employee, and I've never heard someone complain about an employee that said, I like them, but they ask too many questions. No such thing. When you're new, especially, ask more questions. I'm actually worried if somebody doesn't ask me a question all day. I'll be like, I'm like,
Are
you're
you
you're
okay?
missing something, or you're not trying something, or you're not researching. Like, there's always growth, there's always potential, there's always things to do more. And the other thing would be to is be proactive. Obviously, when you start a new role, there's going to be a learning curve. You're going to have a lot of questions. You're not going to understand most of the things. That's understood and that's okay. But I will tell you, once you're in, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months there, where you get the gist of it, you kind of understand what's going on, then be proactive and be like, if there's something that doesn't look right or doesn't fit, ask about it. Be like, hey, why are we doing it like this? Or hey, I've heard of this thing. Can we try that? Those types of things we love. It might not be yes. The answer might not be yes, but it just shows that you're looking at the big picture all the time, other than what's, again, written in the job description. To me, a job description is almost useless.
Yeah.
It's just something to put on paper so we understand where we're starting at. But you guys think it's a starting point for
Yes.
your career. So go above and beyond. Don't do your work. If you do your work, and if it takes you all day to do your work, 1 month in, and then 6 months in, it takes you 2 hours to do all your work, find something else. Find something like find more to do because there's always more to do. Promise you. Promise you.
Very well said. And I think anybody listening to the audio here might be double checking to see if that was me saying that or you saying that, because I think you hit on all the points that I touch on every episode here. It's that
Perfect.
resourcefulness, the continued learning. Like when I interview for my day job, one question that I always ask is, what's the last thing that you learned? And there's not really a wrong answer. I don't care if it's I
No,
learned how to cook or I learned how to do this. But if you say nothing, I haven't, like, I don't know, it shows you're complacent. You're not doing the continued learning, all those things, right? So I love the
yeah.
continued learning answer that you gave there as well. And last one here from me, Anthony. You're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're somebody who created his own path here. What advice would you have for somebody who's, kind of waffling about doing that or looking to get into it, think they have the entrepreneurial spirit? What are some of the biggest learnings or advice that you've gathered through your career here?
Yeah, definitely. I know we were talking about it in the sports world where we're trying to you and I were always trying to network our way in. I went to, I was 10 years into a career at University of Toronto and I was still trying to get into the sports world. So I went to these sports and business conferences. Actually, that is how I met my partner, Jeff. So
Okay.
they are very valuable to go and see and meet people, and you never know what conversation you're going to have or who you're going to meet. But the biggest thing from an entrepreneurial, in sports or out of sports in general, the entrepreneurship mindset is do. You have to do. There's no good time. There's no bad time. Now is better than later,
Yeah.
always. So that's the only thing you can't afford to not do. And it is not, again, not for everyone, and everyone is not built like that. But entrepreneurship is actually a skill. I'd say so. I'm gonna take back what I said. Not everyone's not built for that. It's like it doesn't come naturally to everyone, but it doesn't mean everyone can't do it. Entrepreneurship is a skill, it's a mindset, and that can all be changed and it can be taught and it can be learned. So doing is the number one thing. That's how you learn stuff
Yep.
by doing. So that's if you take zero anything else from this podcast, take that.
Yeah, very well said, and I think it correlates with what you said about when you're hiring people, right? It's taking on more opportunities, taking initiative, picking up other things when your workload's light. Those are all sort of things that work well in a small business or as an entrepreneur yourself. But Anthony, this has been awesome. I really appreciate the time here. Tell the people where they can find you or Blade Tech Hockey if they have any questions or maybe interested in filling out that profiling assessment.
Absolutely. Definitely the profiling assessment. If you haven't tried a profile, try it. Bladetech Hockey on all the socials, bladetechhockey.com, bladetechhockey.ca if you're in Canada. Don't worry if you're not, there's a pop-up that says, hey, are you in Canada? Uh, but you can find us and you can reach out directly to us on our website as well, like on the contact us form. We answer your questions within a day all the time.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Anthony, truly appreciate the time here. Best of luck with Blade Tech here, and we'll definitely be following along.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it.